Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voter, to hear directly from the candidates. We took questions from the community via email and social media, and now we get to hear their views on the issues that are important to us leading up to the primary election on May 21st. Today's guest is Mark McKeehan, a candidate for jailer. I want to thank you for joining us today, and could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me here, Steve. I was raised in Franklin County. Me and my wife, Donna, have been together for 22 years. We have 3 kids and 3 granddaughters. I have over 25 years experience working for the Department of Corrections, the Franklin County Regional Jail, and the Shelby County Detention Center. And for the last 2 years, I've worked for the Franklin County Sheriff's Office as a bailiff at the courthouse.
Okay. So do you have a favorite prison movie?
Shawshank have to be.
Okay.
I really like that one.
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what is it that inspired you to run for jailer?
Well, I've been there, worked there for over 20 years of my life. I put in that jail. And when I started, it was a place you could go make a career out of it, which is not anymore. And a lot of people don't want to work there. And I want to go back and make it a place that's safe for the inmates, the officers, and the community, and make it a place again where somebody can go make a full career out of it and actually be able to retire with a good retirement.
Okay. And you've already talked about what previous experience you have. For those who may not know, could you share the responsibilities of the jailer and what's expected?
The jailer is responsible for the budget, the physical plant of the facility, all the officers working at the facility, the inmates, and making sure everyone is kept safe and secure and responsible to keep it in budget and try not got over budget.
Okay. What do you think the biggest issue facing the jail is at this time?
Right now, it have to be the employees.
Yeah.
They're low-staffed and little to no experienced employees working there right now, and that's the number one thing that needs to be fixed before you can do anything else there.
Okay. And what do you think about how do you go about finding the employees or getting the employees?
You would have to even try to get people with prior experience, like people have not expired, that have retired, and try to get them to come back to work. I've had multiple other people that have worked there before have got a hold of me and told me that they would love to come back to work with me if I could get in there. And that's what we need in there is experienced officers to get that place back where it needs to be.
Okay. What's the first thing you would do if you were elected?
That would be the first, strong recruitment to try to get more people in the jail. And I've also been working on something for longevity pay. For the longer you stay there, you get a bonus. Like for the first year, you might get 16 hours of vacation time and a $250 bonus, and so on the longer you stay.
Okay.
It's worked out pretty good in some other counties I've checked with so far.
Okay. So how do you feel about the changing visitation from in-person to video?
That saves a lot of time and trouble with the deputies, especially when they're short-staffed, because I know when we did it, it was constant every 30 minutes. You was constantly running back and forth, having to get people in and out. There was constant inmates going all over the place all the time. So it's actually good for the safety, and it's less trouble and time on the deputies where they can put their force towards something else, like stopping other things coming in, like drugs or fights or anything like that going on inside the jail.
All right. So people can visit the way it was? People could visit any time?
There are set times they have for it, plus I believe they still got the tablets where they can make visits on the tablets.
Okay.
And they also have monitors there inside the front lobby where they can go to have visits. It's just the inmates stay in their cell and visit through the tablets with them up there. There's no actual face-to-face like there used to be.
Okay. And you think that works better?
Yes, that works good. That's less time. That's less inmates moving. That's less possible fights inmates passing each other in the hallway could get into. So, yeah.
Okay. What actions would you recommend to improve the contractual services and the medical provider at the jail?
I'd have to look at all the contracts and see what best fits the jail. I mean, because until you get in there, you just don't know. The one they have could be the best one they have because they went to it from the one they had prior. but you would have to go through each contract to make sure it's benefiting and not hurting the jail. That way the jail is benefiting from it, and so are the deputies and inmates.
Okay. What would you do to ensure that the medical program is adequate to meet the needs of the jail?
I would look at that. I would observe them and see how they run it, and then compare it to others and get in contact with other surrounding counties and see what they use for their medical, and get with the people that's using the one they have now to see how they like it. And if everybody's for them, we'd stick with them. And if you could find somebody better, then go with them.
Okay. What would you recommend to raise revenue at the jail?
Well, right now, they got the contract back with Anderson County, which is good. We lost that years ago. And also look into why the federal contract was lost with the jail. Not sure why that happened. But it's that and the SAP program they're talking about starting. You get an extra per diem a day for the inmates going through that. Plus there's certain tests they take. If they pass them, the state pays the jail money. So there's numerous ways out there to get extra revenue.
Okay.
We used to, outside the main jail was an honor dorm. That's where the low-class state inmates used to stay that went to work in the community. Mm-hmm. Well, after COVID, they released a lot of the low-risk ones, so now no jails have access to very few of those inmates, so now they have only maybe 15 out of like 60 they used to send out now to the community.
What programming would you suggest implementing at the jail to improve education, training, and the impact on returning to civilization?
Yeah. Well, the inmates, definitely the GED. Thornhill does really good with that. Mm-hmm. They're really good at it, and they got a high percentage of the inmates passing.
Right.
And then you need the AANA, Alcoholics Anonymous, need to make sure it's still set up and going. And then, of course, the substance abuse program, the SAP program, that's only for the state inmates.
Okay.
And, of course, state inmates have a lot more access to different things on the outside than regular county inmates do.
Okay.
Which is something that's needed because 90% of the inmates that are in the jail, almost all of them are in there, and it's something related to alcohol or drugs.
Okay.
So we need to set up more classes for them. But once they get out, county inmates, unless most time, don't have access to other programs on the outside like they do on the inside. Of course, on the inside, it's structured, which a lot of them live a whole lot better when they got a structured life.
Right.
So we need to set something up where the programs on the inside can transition with them to the outside to help them more once they're out so they won't come back into the jail.
Okay. So you have county, state, and federal prisoners there?
There's county and state. I don't think there's any federal prisoners there right now.
But that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Looking into bringing back?
Of course, that's all getting it fully staffed and properly trained, too, which is the biggest problem right now.
Right. Okay. You've covered staff issues. We talked about safety of the inmates. And you've talked about retraining or retaining qualified staff. What would your plan be to ensure equal treatment of male and female inmates?
That would be, like I said, the better training. You always have to be training. You can't just train them when they first come in, then just do the once yearly 40-hour training. You have to have extra training all during the year on the policies and different subjects to make sure they know this is the way they need to act.
Yep.
And act on it if somebody does do something wrong. They need to act on it, not just look over it. But that goes back to proper training and little to no experience there right now, too.
Okay. How would you ensure that addicted inmates get the necessary treatment?
As far as what kind of treatment?
Ensure that inmates do not have access to drugs within the facility, et cetera.
Well, years ago, Rick Rogers, when he was jailer, he got the scanner put in, which is a very useful tool. You won't catch everything, but it'll help 90% of it. But as long as the staff are properly trained to use it and somebody's over watching them to make sure, you will stop most of the stuff coming into that jail. Mm-hmm. Of course, that with the phone system and everything, you can catch most of it coming in, but eventually something's going to get in. You can't stop 100% of it. That's almost impossible. It's going to happen regardless, but you can stop 99% of it.
Okay. What changes would you make in policy to hold inmates accountable for the criminal activity inside the jail?
I think it's already in place because they're real good about when they're caught, they get the evidence and they get them indicted. So they have been really good about doing that once they catch them.
Okay. Tell us about a time with you that you dealt calmly and effectively in a high-stress situation. Doesn't have to be related to the job.
Oh.
It could be anything.
There was I think, Lord, it's been years ago. We had one cell at night refused to lock down, and it was me and two others because we were short that night. So there's only three of us went up there, and I think it was like 20-some inmates, and they were upset. They didn't want to go to lockdown like you're supposed to at nighttime. So we went up there and talked to them, and eventually, after about 20 minutes, we got them to where they did what they're supposed to do. Of course, in the end, we ended up taking all their personal stuff and locking them down for like 7 days for what they did. But after that, they were just fine, and we had no more problem with them.
Okay. If elected, what steps would you take to ensure that the staff is properly trained? I know you've talked about that before, but...
Oh, yes. Well, we need to make sure we got a good training officer that's trained in all the different areas, and we need at least 2 full-time training officers, which would make a big difference because that way they can go to different shifts. But we also need, like we used to have help trainers on each one of the shifts that helped train and reported back to the full-time trainers what was going on. That way they could coordinate and make sure everybody was properly trained at all the duty stations.
Okay. How would you better communicate with the public the activities of the jail and the good work being done by the staff?
You could hold a meeting quarterly or once a month, just depending, and let them know this is how you're progressing. Because usually the only time the public hears anything about the jail is when something bad's happened that comes out in the paper.
Right.
Which usually most time people never hear about it. So that needs to change to where we need to start getting the positive things out so people think more better of the jail instead of bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any other major goals that you would work on during your term?
Well, the physical plan of the jail is one. And eventually, it's a 30-year jail going on 40 years.
Okay.
And eventually, it's going to have to be replaced because it's not worth spending millions of dollars every year into a building that's eventually you're not going to be able to house them in when you can go ahead and just pay the money out in the long run, save the money because you're not paying out millions every year to have to fix stuff up like the place, it's falling down. So,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
that would be the number one thing to do is get a new jail built.
Okay. Well, now you get a couple of minutes. It's up to you. You get to look into the one camera there straight ahead and just talk to the viewers and ask for their vote.
Thanks, sir. The jail right now, it is in a crisis. They're low staff. They're very inexperienced people working there. We need, if you compare my experience to my 2 opponents, you'll see that I am the only qualified candidate that has the experience and the leadership abilities to be the next Franklin County jailer. We cannot afford to go backwards at the jail right now at the way it's sitting. I want to thank you for having me here, and I humbly request your vote. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time today. And I know that our viewers appreciate hearing from you. And go out on May 21st and vote.